they don't have secret due diligence. Like we're working due diligence with them, and we're having meetings with them. You know, we almost require them to use our engineers. Our engineers working with whoever they hire. Whoever they hire has to be in Nashville also. And then another big thing is like, well, how are they paying for this? Because you know, this is usually 5+ million. Are they doing a raise? Are they paying cash? If there's investors coming in, are they personally guaranteeing the note? What is the banks? What type of banks are they using? Private funds, commercial banks? So trying to figure out if these people have the net worth to take the deal down. Seeing if they could have to personally guarantee it, because a lot of times it's just finding a guarantor. Like the builder will go through and just find a guarantor, somebody that could sign the note and raise the money, and then he signs the note. So we have to make sure the bank is, whoever they're working with is already working these through, or 9 times out of 10, we're not going to have a financial appraisal contingency, even though it may be part of it. We don't make a contingent upon it if we can't help it.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions, Eddie.
When you're finding like the properties, this is just a follow-up question, but are you pulling lists to find these properties, or is it just through your network?
All the above.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll pull lists per zoning or per neighborhood or per council district that has favorable products that we're working on.
Yeah. And I think that you just mentioned that, so we've went to some community meetings because, that's you need to really have a good relationship with the council person in that area.
Then your engineer has to have a good
it, that's what I was
relationship
gonna say.
too.
So,
Sorry.
yeah, like Catalyst that they use, those guys have great relationships with the city council because, that council person can kill your deal real quick, right? And so, we went with them to one. Catalyst has a great reputation with that city council person. So she was very good at handling any questions that came up from the community that was there. And they kind of led the show, but Ryan and Greg were there to also answer questions. But it's just very important, and it's obviously Catalyst has worked with the council person to kind of say, hey, this is what we're looking at putting on it. She's already she or he has given kind of the thumbs up, but then Catalyst kind of runs that with it's the council person runs a meeting, but
Yeah, and this
Catalyst has that reputation to help them, get these through the community meetings, because if you don't, you're dead in the water.
Yeah, so like when you're doing due diligence, one of the things you're gonna do is you have to find an engineer, right? So the best thing to do is go find projects in that area and pull up their plans and see who all these people are using. Because we want somebody, like if there's sewer extensions and we need to figure out the pipes and maybe the maps aren't up to date. So I could call somebody, be like, what is your water capacity on your property? And then you got to make sure that you see all the units on the street to make sure that there's enough water capacity if you're going to add 100 units. So you're going to have to do additional infrastructure. So, it's really hard to find that information out going downtown to the city and zoning and stuff. Like you have to have engineers that have worked with it. And there's 2 ways to work with you. You can, like we do most of this ourselves. But you can hire an engineer to take you all the way through the zone.
Eddie.
The quick question was, I'm sure you've had some pushback, like when it comes to like those council members. How do you overcome like some of those obstacles? Is it more like relationship based, or
sometimes you don't? So the first thing we do is talk to the council person before we even get a contract. It's like we're in negotiations, maybe we have an LOI out, and your LOI gives you time to figure some stuff out without being locked into earnest and start your clock ticking, right? Because it could take you a month to get a hold of the council person. Mm-hmm. So you can have an LOI sit out there for a while, let that just marinate while you have to talk to them, you have to find out. We have a contract right now that now they're changing council districts, so we're not even working with the council person because it's not even going to be that by the time our due diligence is up. So we had to extend our due diligence to like a year to make sure that we could at least talk to somebody, So I can go back to this and show you some other things we had to work through. So this is like the fire.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you can.
So of those different easements and entitlements that you did, what was the one that was the most difficult for you to resolve?
So I could tell you, not on this deal. So for instance, on this deal, we have so anytime there's an easement agreement, and you have to find it. Not only do you have to find it, You have to find the person who's really in charge of it. The general manager of the dollar store wasn't in charge of it. None of the employees know nothing. You can't find the owner. So you have to spend time like calling these attorneys that are on their deeds and just try to find out like who is the owner of this HOA or this easement. So the same thing is with like an HOA. So we have one where and there's just there's old PUDs, they have HOAs, and you sometimes have to like downzone things or amend things, which takes just as long too. So I'd say HOAs are definitely the most difficult because they don't, it's like, there was one where we were gonna do residential, but it was all a commercial HOA with big office buildings. So, we wanted to, let's opt out of the HOA. They would not let them out of the HOA, so they had to redo, it took a year to get the HOA to get this document. If you don't get that document, then you can't do what you want to do. So like we had a contingent just upon that HOA. And we were calling, we were just hounding them daily and just like, then they got to get all their board together and the other boards work full time. And then half the people show up to the first meeting and then they got to talk to this about it. And then nobody, these are hourly employees that don't really care about your deal. These people are, so and there are a lot of them are volunteers. So, stuff like that could be tedious for sure. Did I answer your question?
Mhm.
Anything else? All right.
Then you do that before your contract.
No.
No.
Yeah, it just takes so long. Well,
What grabbed your interest on this one, other than West Trinity Lane owns a big space, right? Because, you said, hey, you don't even really know what you're getting. You're speculating, oh, we got something. Oh, we said $1 million. Oh, maybe that could be something. Like,
Well-
what gets you interested?
well, look at this. You've got your line, right, your zoning line right here. You've got resident, it's all one parcel, right? And I have two zonings, right? So I know that if I at least can split the zonings, I have more pads, right? I have a commercial piece that I could sell, which we'll go through that, but we ended up selling the commercial. We still have the residential. So we know we have that right there. And we also know now with doing that, we have adaptive residential. So now you just maximize your density. So those are just rules through the Municode, just knowing those things. So that's what and then we marked it up and went to our engineer and said, hey, could we do this? What do we got to do to do this?
So basically, you sold the commercial and it paid for everything, so you have the other ones free and clear.
Right. But that's like plottage, you like a lot of commercials, you'll have 60 acres and then you'll split off 5 acres for commercial, some residential. So that's basically the same thing, just a really small version of it. But there was a lot to go with this. So we had to work through fire because now these turnarounds over here, see, they want you a certain turnaround. Fire is a big thing. And now with the ladders, certain stories, like they have to make sure that they swing their ladder around. So we were working with fire for probably 2 or 3 months on just getting them to have our buildings moved and see how they're kind of scattered, like that one's pushed over and stuff, just so they could get their fire truck in there. And then a big thing was, let's see what I got on here. Oh, I used to work on one screen. I think I'm missing one. Well, I think I'm missing one. Anyway, where did I leave off on that? So basically, what we did was we took the concept. So are we tracking where we're at so far? We figured out highest and best use that we thought. Went to the engineers, got that figured out. Started working through our encumbrances with electric, this easement agreement, this pond, because you got to dig up the paperwork. All this stuff takes forever. And it looks like we have a landscape buffer there. It looks like, yeah, we have a landscape buffer because I want to say, well, this had okay. So let's think about density for a second. This property right here was a daycare. Okay, so what does that tell you? You cannot have an STR. Okay. CL, that zoning, another value add is STR eligible. And that was like, so, okay, cool. So we sell that STR price per pad. Well, there's a daycare here. So you can't have a building with 100 feet of the actual structure. So you have to take your little tool and you measure out from the edge of the daycare, like, okay, so you're just crossing out units that are not STR eligible. So now it's like, okay, so if you're thinking 150 STR pad eligible, and you're thinking, okay, well now some of these are 100 a pad for residential because now we're going to mix residential and mix STR, because we had the whole thing before as one, and that didn't work because it's one dwelling. And you got people, half STR and half owner occupied, so that was definitely a challenge. So there's a church, like there's some across the street on 500 West Trinity, there was a church. And like they had to circle off a bunch that they couldn't do too. So now we're trying to figure out, oh, where did I put that concept? Find it real fast.
We have the retail in the front and that one.
Yeah, because I want to explain, now we're trying to figure out like, how do we sell this thing?
Hey Greg, I got a question while you're looking for that.
Yeah.
On the STR rule you were just talking about,
Mhm.
I've heard some mixed things about that. Is that 100-foot rule to the parcel or that the actual dwelling?
It's the parcel line to the dwelling. So it's the parcel line of the daycare to the dwelling of the unit.
Okay,
That's my understanding.
so then in that case, some of those would still. be
Correct.
parcelable, okay.
Yes. So now it's like, okay, now it's like time to find end buyer. So right now we have entitlement because it's already zoned. But we had to get a split off, so there was that time in between. So for a while, we took these concepts and so we have townhomes here. I don't have the last concept, but there's townhomes here. So basically like this is all slope. There's your daycare. This was like a massive slope. So they have a massive retaining wall there. So during the due diligence of the end buyer, we landed up losing, I think, 2 or 3 units. So they had to come back and do, adjust the price a little bit. But, you take a concept like this and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I think we landed up getting 43 pads on this one.
It's 43 or
It was 43. Was it 43? Might have been, let's say
I
40.
think it was 44.
44. Okay, so I figured, okay, so we're gonna average these out. We think maybe a STR pad's 150. We think a residential pad's 100. Put it out for 125 a pad. So I put it out for like 5 million. I listed it. With the concept, we weren't done with everything yet, but we were close enough to try to figure out like, not just like test the market time. I'm not saying you should list it on MLS, but you can blast it out to your people, call your builders and do that, which is part of it too. I just wanted to, because we weren't very motivated to sell it because of the price that we had it for. We're like, let's just put it out there and just see what happens. So I listed it for 2 or 3 months and we had some people that were interested. We had some LOIs come in. A lot of them were not really what we wanted. So 5 million, I think, brought you to like 113 a pad or something like that. Yeah, 113 a pad. So, maybe 3 or 4 months came by and we started getting to the end of this process. Like finally got a hold of the Dollar Tree. We had on this back of these single family lots, we actually, what we did was we created an easement right here, a utility easement. So if anybody, because there was sewer on Monticello and there's sewer in West Trinity, but like, just for somebody to bring sewer all the way back there from West Trinity, it was just like, well, why don't we create an easement so the end buyer could, which is another value add, they could save thousands of dollars on whatever they gotta do. So we created an easement here and we sold the easement with the property. And then as we own those lots anyway, so it doesn't even matter. And the easement is only for a certain amount of time. They'll have like 2 years to use it, or they can exercise another one or something like that. And then it goes away. So we put it on the market for 5 million. Had some traction. Didn't really get the offers we wanted. So I fired myself, which I do all the time, and I hired Brian. So Brian took it over. And then we ended up having a contract. So now they're working with this was an easier deal because they know Davidson County, they know what they're doing. Like, they have their financing together, they were easy to work with. So we had multiple meetings with all of them. So it's not like, your agent calls and it's like, hey, I got my buyer on the phone. It's just, you just have meetings with people. It's just the way it is. The buyers and sellers, they're in constant contact, they're emailing back and forth. The agents are sometimes in the loop, unless they need to be brought in. Usually we don't negotiate without an agent, but a lot of times we do, because I'm a broker, so I could, me being a broker on the team, I can basically do whatever I want, especially if I have ownership of the property. So we put it out for 5 and then we got it. I think the first time we finally got under contract was 4.7.
Yeah.
So we had it out 4.7 for a long time. And then we were working on this whole retaining wall issue for a while. There was something else up here, I think between the fire, moving the units, a couple of them had to be smaller.
Worked on this easement here.
Yeah, the easement took a little bit. So then we, a few months later, we did a little price.
Yeah, well, they came back on price, wanting a price adjustment because of. the
Yeah, it was
retaining
these,
and
yep.
Yeah, we had to take out a couple of
Because
spaces and then the easement.
as you're
So
going
we
through,
got
you're
down
gonna
to-
find additional costs, and it's like, you just have to see like who's more motivated to take it, the buyer or the seller, So sometimes, when you're talking 4.7, 4.5.
Yep.
I mean, it's like, okay, and then, at that time, we're just like, this is your, we have hard earnest money, we'll have probably, I think we had another deposit of hard earnest money probably.
Yep.
We usually have milestones, so like, we'll get to a certain point, some money goes hard, maybe additional deposit down the line. Usually third reading is a great time for either us for ours to go hard or we get theirs to go hard, because then we're just waiting for the close.
Yeah, we did.